Hello, everybody. I'm Kipp Snow, Director of the Transportation Distribution Logistics Institute at the Community College of Baltimore County.
Hey, I'm Mike Singer, Community Manager, Baltimore and Chesapeake Bay Shipwatchers. Welcome to Two Guys Talking Ship podcast, episode 50. So, with the polo shirt and white t-shirt underneath theme for this week.
That's because we're recording after work and we just rolled home.
Yeah, really.
So you're mentioning episode 50.
Mm-hmm.
We also had another milestone this week. I just happened to go on the YouTube page. We got our 300th subscriber.
We did.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. It's
very cool.
Notching up there. So
now we're not going to talk about the fact that we said we were going to give out a gift for the 200th subscriber, and we haven't done it yet. We're not going to mention that.
We got to figure out who that was.
Will the jury please disregard my last comment?
I know, right?
Which I always laugh about, right? Because I'm like, you just made the jury think about it, and everybody else in the courtroom think about it 2 more times by saying, "Forget it."
Forget it. Yeah. All right.
Real quickly, if you're new to the channel, give us a like, subscribe, hit the bell to be alerted to new podcasts as they come available.
Do we need to address the elephant in the room? How was your vacation? I'm glad you made it back safely.
Safely, yes. But the flights changed and gate agents didn't know what they were doing, and we wind up spending the night in the Miami airport. Felt like the veggies in the crisper in the drawer of your refrigerator. Come to find out, that plane wasn't ready, and we could have spent the night in a hotel instead of trying to freeze in an airport and get like 50 minutes of sleep. The vacation was wonderful.
Nice.
It was awesome. Getting home, not so much.
Okay. Well, I tried very hard to hold the fort down.
Yeah, I saw it. You did a podcast with Orange Mike.
Yeah, that was
or Sepia Mike or whatever the hell. I was like, man, I look weird.
So the research department did put that one together and help me out for that one. So
yeah, that was kind of funny.
As we were planning that one, and she held up the picture of you in the little square on the screen, it was all I could do just to get the episode started recording because I kept laughing so hard. I was like, "That's not Mike.
That's great."
It looks like him for a second." Nope. So I appreciate the research department filling in for you last week. So
yeah, that was cool.
We might have an impromptu segment every so often.
Yeah. Yeah, that worked, man. That was appreciate you guys holding the fort down while I was out soaking my toes in the sand.
Sand in the warm sun.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and get into your shipping updates with your metrics.
Right. So every week we talk about the truck transactions at Seagirt, which is the only terminal that does containers, and we're just trying to figure out, just try to get a feel for what's going on for cargo. So there's been a little bit of flexing, but not a whole bunch. And anyway, so started out like so where we're going to go through 7-8 weeks here, and so it was like in the 39s, almost 39s, 37s, and then a dip, and now we're back into 36. Anyway, so I'm just read out the numbers, right? So 3887 a day. So, almost 3,900 truck transactions a day. So that was 7 weeks ago. So 3,887. Then 3,899, 3,746, 3,779, then a nice little dip here, 3,355, 3,522, and then just last week, back up to 3,625, and that's with the day off on Thursday for a federal holiday for
that's right.
Juneteenth.
Everything was closed on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's a strong week just with 4 days.
Right. So I don't know if it's gonna, run back up into the 38s, or if maybe that was everybody jumping on the the pre-tariff bandwagon.
Yeah.
If it doesn't go back up there,
right,
then maybe that's the conclusion that we could reach.
I think for me, it'll be interesting once we get into August and we start seeing how things kind of. I kind of have a feeling maybe a plateau or settling down maybe after all of that hiccup. And I'm curious to see if there was a major impact. We would have continued to see a downturn, but in the past 2 weeks since we hit that 33.55 3 weeks ago, it's been a steady climb, incline back up. I wonder if that was just what the what the impact was right there.
And Seagar seems pretty busy today. I haven't looked at the numbers. But I could. Maybe I'll get around to that. We want to talk about, so let's do our Pride of Baltimore segment. So she's 2 weeks into her Great Lakes trip.
That's right.
Until September. She's doing that Tall Ships America Tall Ships Challenge.
I saw some postings on their social media pages yesterday that they were done in Brockville, Ontario. So that is right there on the St. Lawrence River. They had to go through some of the canal locks to get to that point. They had their stay over in Brockville. Now they are on their way to Toronto, and so they'll be making their trek this week. And June 28th and 29th, they'll be in Toronto. So if you happen to be watching us from Toronto, make sure that you go out there to go take a look at the ship. So
yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, so they are progressing along nicely through their trip.
Yeah. So I go on vacation, and you go and have fun without me. What the heck, Kipp?
Well, you shouldn't have gone on vacation then. I mean, that's
dang, the guy can't go.
No, I missed you on that. So we I did make a trip out to the Coast Guard yard this week.
Can I get a clip of that? Can I isolate that so I can play it back later that you missed me?
Put that in the bloopers. Yeah. No, I did miss you. I wish that you were on the ship because it was
would have been cool.
It was really neat to be able to see everything and to to talk with some of the people that were there. I have some pictures that I'd like to share, and kind of talk about what I saw. But what we're also going to do is I have a significant amount of video around the event that we're going to put the video together so that the viewership can take a look at everything that took place during that ceremony. So I have some pictures and I'd like to just kind of show everybody, and then we'll include those with all of the video. But it was the weather was decent. It was a little overcast. We actually took.
Hey, look at that's a cool shot.
Yeah, this is a cool shot, and I wanted to show some things here. So the James Rankin is based here in Baltimore, and it is normally the ship that goes out and puts the buoy out every year. But this year the Rankin is under repair. So they had the William Tate come out.
From Delaware.
From Philadelphia. And so I thought it was interesting. Both ships are identical. They're parked next to each other at the Coast Guard yard. And we had to go on the Rankin to go across to get to the Tate.
Oh, that's interesting.
But it's interesting. It was the way that they were parked next to each other. It's interesting. You see they had these two cranes on both of the vessels. And I thought it was interesting how they labeled each one. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the Rankins is the keeper of the bay, which would be the Chesapeake Bay, and
Mm-hmm.
then the crane on the Tate says Liberty's keeper, which references the Liberty Bell up in Philly. So,
Mm-hmm.
but anyway, we were able to get on aboard the vessel, and quite literally, as soon as you walk on, the buoy is sitting right there, strapped down, ready to go, and they had some chairs out there for us to sit while we were underway, but also once we got out to the site, then we had some places for people to sit. Um,
Cool.
there is the buoy in place, and so I thought that this shot was quite interesting as the buoy had been placed and the ship started to pull away. I grabbed this picture just to
Mm-hmm.
kind of show the key bridge in the background, but where the buoy was actually positioned and where it was placed.
Yeah, and that. So, can we go back to that for a
Yeah.
second?
Hmm.
So, I had asked you, did you know if the buoy is placed in its traditional location?
Yeah.
And you had mentioned you weren't sure
I
about that, but
I Go ahead.
but when it is in its traditional location and they moved it because of the key bridge, right, and everything
Mhm.
was going there, they moved it way further inland, like towards the shore,
Right.
on the eastern side, if you will. But when it's in its normal place, like the cameras over here on this shore, our live stream camera,
Hmm.
and when it's in its normal place, every once in a while it sneaks out to the side of this surround that's around this
Mm.
light, the high tension pole here.
Hmm.
And you can just barely catch a glimpse of it if like
Oh,
the tide or the wind is right.
okay.
Um, so we'll have to keep an eye out for it. Now that
Sure.
I see it here in this picture, that sort of tells me it's in about the normal place.
I think it isn't about the right place. I'd have always asked this question anytime I get a Coast Guard representative or somebody close
Mm-hmm.
to the whole operation. I've asked this question, and there's usually been a little chuckle or smirk, and yeah, that's about the right place. But I did some research on it, and there are
Mm-hmm.
actually two eyewitness accounts that are written
What?
for that night from shore, and it's more from the Bear Creek and the Trade Point Atlantic area
Hmm.
that referenced the where the ship was located that Key was on when he wrote the poem. And
Mm-hmm.
so with some triangulation, I guess, if you're in the GPS world, they figured out that this is as close to the exact spot as possible. So this is pretty
Mm-hmm.
pretty close.
Yeah, and some other things that I've heard, and I can't. This first part, I don't remember who I was talking to, but um, you know, when you have things like this that are placed, um, you know, 200 years later,
Yeah.
um, the accuracy, uh, yeah, I think you're going to get two camps. One is going to be, well, it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of close. It's in the neighborhoodish, right? But I think wasn't it the Dundalk Historical Society
I think you're right.
that was the catalyst for this?
Mm-hmm.
And you talk to those folks, they are pretty darn passionate that
Right.
this is pretty darn close.
Right. Right.
Um, and I think they might debate you about the that
Right.
it's in the neighborhood. Uh,
And that's okay. I think what's most important here is that we're celebrating the transaction.
yes,
So.
yes. Um, One more thing, and you can
Mhm.
stay on that picture if you like.
Sure.
Uh, is what I've heard is that, and this is I'm just fascinated by this. That the British, their armament on the boat was better or farther, had a longer range than the land-based stuff from Fort McHenry, which almost doesn't make sense. But supposedly, the British were just out of Fort McHenry gun range. So you could figure out what that is and probably draw an arc and at least.
Oh, okay.
Okay, right. So
that makes sense. Yes.
Is the buoy at least a little bit beyond this arc where we, I don't have any finite facts to substantiate that, but that's what I've been told.
I think that might be something we could, with a little bit of Scooby-Dooing, we could figure out. What
are you trying to say research without saying research?
Yeah, exactly.
No.
To try to figure out what the gun range is for the guns that were mounted on the south side of the fort, what your range was, and then draw it out and see if it works.
Mm-hmm. So, is this your photo?
Yeah, this is my photo.
Where were you?
I was up on the fly deck. Which is the very, very top deck above the bridge.
Okay.
So I had video. I also have video from this angle.
Mm-hmm.
But what they did was in progression, they unstrapped everything and used the crane to lift the buoy up in the air and moved it over to off over into the water. You see this thing hanging off of the side here?
Right.
So that's the big concrete pad that holds the buoy in place.
Right. The big anchor, for lack of a better term.
Yes.
Gee, why isn't anybody sitting in those chairs anymore?
That's because, what they had done
was get the heck out of the way for safety. Yeah.
Exactly. That was a safety, safety operation. They had only certain members of the crew out there. You can see everybody in hard hats and safety vests.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so you had some people up on the far deck there that you can see. And then there was some people standing to the side of me.
Mm-hmm.
But they raised the buoy up and then got everything in line and position. And then they dropped the buoy in the water and then unhooked the strap from the buoy. And then they took a big sledgehammer and knocked the chain away from the boat, and then the concrete pad dropped into the water, and then
Was there a big splash?
It was a little bit of a splash. It was I think what was more impressive was listening to the chain kind of sliding off of the deck into the water and that kind of noise. But I was expecting like a fanfare and fireworks and big splash, and it just was all kind of choreographed and gentle and eased it right in, and everybody was happy. So that was
well, last time. So I don't know if you have a shot of it, but looking at the superstructure of the ship, there are two stairways that go up to what is the next deck, I guess it is. And Matt and they let us stand on those stairs.
Ooh, okay.
Right? So, which wasn't too far from where this anchor piece was.
Sure. And
when that thing dropped in, I mean, there was a giant kersplash, the way I remember it.
Okay.
I thought we were going to get wet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, the concrete pad was hugging the water. It was, even with us going out into the river, it was creating a huge wake. So I don't know if they had it positioned so that it didn't make that big of a splash or not. But
you might be right. So it was that low in the water the whole time.
Yes. Because
I think when we went and it was on the Tate, which is interesting. 2 or 3 years ago or something. Ironic that you and I have both been out there and neither time has it been aboard the Rankin.
Yeah, that is interesting.
And the same replacement boat. But I think it was higher.
May have been.
I think it was several feet up off the water. Maybe they wanted to do it a different way or something.
Sure. Maybe they figured out a better process or something. So that was a really neat. It was a short trip, but it was really neat to experience that. The galley had opened up
Oh yeah,
the the kitchen for everybody, and it made a nice lunch, and
nice.
it was nice to be able to eat and chat with some people that were there and take some of the pictures. So
Yeah, did you anybody in particular that you remember or run into or?
there were quite a number of people.
Mm-hmm.
Coast Guard folks. Um, some different maritime associations that were in the port had representation on there.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the family of the crew and some of the family of other Coast Guard members were on board.
Nice.
So that was a nice event. But
Very
we'll
cool.
have some video for everybody here very shortly,
Nice.
so that you can see the full ceremony. Not only was the buoy laid, but we also had representation from the National Park Service
Oh
to come
right.
out from Fort McHenry to read a narrative, and then the
Mm-hmm.
Coast Guard. It was Coast Guard headquarters chorus was there to sing the national anthem and America the Beautiful. So
Cool.
it was a really nice ceremony. So
Excellent. Well, I'm glad you were able to go. I
yeah,
mean, I was really bummed that, the date was right in the middle of my vacation, but hopefully next time.
yeah. You got some updates on the Key Bridge?
Yeah, a little bit. Some stuff's trickling out. So, heck, you sent this to me today.
Yeah, I know.
And this was from, what was it, the Dundalk Eagle?
Yes.
The company tapped to rebuild the Key Bridge. Kiewit Infrastructure Company is now accepting bids for a number of parts crucial to the construction of the bridge's new trestle. Now, were you surprised to see that T word?
Yep.
Because are all bridges trestles?
Mm,
Did they use the wrong word there? Because I picture a specific structure when I think trestle, and I was kind of surprised. I was like,
yeah,
oh.
I'm not sure on the wording on that.
Anyway, including handrails, bull rails,
Hmm.
mat clips, and walkway lumber.
Hmm.
Yeah. Bids are due July 2nd at 4 p.m. So, do you know how that works? I mean, they haven't been awarded the build contract yet, from what I keep hearing.
Yeah.
And so you can submit, you can have your subcon. I mean, I guess. I mean, how would you know that you can match the price if you don't have your subs all lined up?
Right. And I wonder if
I
that's
just I
that
just came up with that. I
maybe they're in the pre stages. Maybe there's a pre award that notice that's been given that allows them to go ahead and start securing some of these without without the
mm-hmm.
final contract in place.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen transactional agreements that are like that where it's like, hey, look, here's a pre award. This guarantees that you can go ahead and start moving forward and you can recoup costs, but until the full contract gets, that might be
Mm-hmm.
the only thing that I can think of.
Yeah, I should ask my next door neighbor. He does contracts.
There you go.
He's works for a pretty big construction company, so.
And they may just be accepting bids for once they do receive it and say, hey, look, if by chance we don't get the bid when we're supposed to, but if by chance we don't, then this is just a bid. We're just trying to frame the pricing around that and start getting
Mm-hmm.
things in line once it happens. So that
So I guess would it lock Kiewit and lock the sub into that number?
it's
Should
possible.
they,
It's
is it like
possible.
written in that way, you think?
It may be. They may need this information in order to fulfill contractual agreements that says, hey, who are the companies that you're going to use in order to do it.
Mm-hmm. So also, there's no equipment out there anymore. But the pile static load tests are supposed to be next.
Okay.
that should start in July. They had that required, I think, a contract mod, and they needed to get some materials to get ready for that.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's supposed to start in July, which is
not that far away.
And every time something came up that was some new information, when somebody would say, "Oh, that probably start in July," like July 1st, you're like, "What? What's?"
July's got a whole month ahead of it.
Yeah, how about that? So if they start on the 31st, it still qualifies.
Yep.
For being correct.
That's right. Yeah, still in July.
Even though we're hoping for as soon as possible. So yeah,
right.
But we'll, if you are somebody who follows us on the live stream camera, you'll see it because you'll see a barge come up with a crane, and
sure,
they're probably hanging out in Curtis Bay, right, where all those cranes are stored.
Yep.
So,
okay. The state DOT, Maryland Department of Transportation, listed some Port of Baltimore numbers.
Yeah, just a few quick numbers that they posted earlier this week. Port of Baltimore is a top port in the nation and a leading economic generator in Maryland. Between March 2024 and March 2025, the port's year-over-year cargo numbers were up 40% for cars. Would be interesting. What were those numbers? Do you remember what those numbers were?
The only thing that I remember, I don't remember what the exact number was, but I remember that there's been a lot of pressers around Brunswick, Georgia, having the top number for RoRos, port operations, which knocked us out for however many years that we were top.
Right.
And it wasn't by much. And if we're 40% up over last year, we should have the number one status back.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because it was what was it? Was it like 10% or something? I remember like a 7,000 number and like a 8,000 number, and it only being like a few hundred apart.
Right.
But what were those numbers? Was that per month or per year?
I don't remember what it was.
We could dig it up in our information, but I'm thinking what you were thinking. 40% of a slight downturn is a pretty significant bump upwards, pretty significant improvement.
I mean, I'm going to look at these numbers though and go, okay, this is from March from last year to March from this year. We had two major incidents: the bridge that closed us down for a month, and then the ILA strike. But that was everybody on the East Coast, so everybody on the East Coast should have been just a couple of percentage points down. But I think what's helping us with these numbers over last year is the fact that we did the business that we did in 11 months. So I would really hope that we would be up over last year. Just from the sheer fact of where we got one extra month that we're operating over last year.
Oh, I see your point. I see the way you're looking at it. And I was kind of thinking of the reverse. Like I was thinking, well, there's a month missing there. So the fact that it's up in 11/12 of the time, that sounds like good news to me.
Now that would be extremely good news, but I would be curious to see what the full year is, not from the March to March. I know what they're trying to promote. It's that, hey, look, we're back from being closed and having these, these constraints in our yearly metrics, and that's great, and it's important to report that, and people need to understand that we're, that we've bounced back from it, but I would kind of expect it though.
Yeah. So numbers were up between March 2024 and March 2025, 40% for cars, 8% for containers, 3% for general cargo. Now, I don't know what raises you're used to having at work, but where I worked for a really long time, you were pretty much getting 3%. You were pretty much getting your cost of living.
Correct. Yeah.
You know, I mean, this just sounds.
So is your general cargo the cost of living increase here? Is that what?
I'm just drawing a similarity.
Yeah. No, I mean that's if you try to understand it, I will say this: 40% for cars is a significant amount, and I wonder if we get picked up a new contract or something, or if there's somebody else is bringing in something new, because that's a significant jump versus the 8 for containers and 3 for general
and I know there were we picked up what now when was the West Coast problem?
I was just about to say
we picked up 21 ships, but those were all container ships.
Sure. I wonder if some of this also has to do with maybe having cars delivered quickly before any of the tariff changes took place, which would also result in why we had so many cars parked out at the terminal in limbo during the past couple of months.
Good point. And then it makes you kind of wonder, like, year for year, what is the typical general cargo improvement? Is it, is 3% like typical? I have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, well, those are some of the things that we look at when we're from a decision making analytical management decision making process. We're looking at the whys associated with those numbers. So it could, we're wanting to know what really could have caused that. I mean, it could, it could be as simple as Matt Lipinski drumming up some more business for the port, and maybe that's reflected in these numbers.
So I got one for you.
Okay.
You know how I'm always saying shipping doesn't stop.
Yeah.
Right. And so we talk about the pilots boarding the ships and, the tugboats and, especially the pilots climbing up those ladders and okay, well, let's just say you're doing it at 2:00 in the morning. Well, let's just say it's February and it's raining and it's 35 degrees and it's nighttime. And the winds are blowing 20 miles an hour and 4-foot seas. And you know what I mean? And that stuff does happen and it doesn't stop. So last week, a tug was out there working and got hit by lightning.
Wow.
Everybody's okay, but
that was going to be my first question.
Right. Everybody's okay, but the engine stopped working. No, that's not right. No, the engine was working, but it took out like electronics, radio, GPS.
Oh, wow.
Right. Like, have you ever had that happen near you? Like, there was a lightning burst. Like, I had a townhouse, my first house. And there was a storm, and there was, thunder and lightning that hit. And it was like you went from being in a storm to like being on the beach on a bright sunny day for like half a second, and somebody dropped like, I don't know, a 747 in front of your house. I mean, just the light and the noise at one specific time was just incredible. And I mean, 10 houses took out TVs, VCRs, stereo systems, cable boxes, just took out a whole bunch of stuff on a block. So when they said it took out their electronics, radio, GPS, and stuff,
it just fried everything.
I mean, if it really got hit, then, that certainly doesn't surprise you.
Well, I mean, they are out in the elements. I mean, they are in a tugboat in the water, and so they can't stop when that those types of weather events happen. They have to keep going. So you hope you have the necessary precautions in place to keep you safe.
Right.
It sounds like they did. So, if everybody was safe and okay,
Yeah.
okay,
And it's not just one tug guy and one guy for the line. I mean, there's, as far as I know, there's like 2 complete crews on there, right? Because they work 12-hour shifts and they don't come off the boat like every 2 weeks. They spend 2 weeks at a time. So to me, it sounds like there's at least 4 crews, right? So your 2 crews come on, and I don't know, maybe they stagger it like once a week. You know what I mean? Like crew A comes on for 2 weeks, and then a week into that, crew B comes on. I don't know how exactly, but so you've got 2 crews of people on there that don't get off of that boat for like 2 weeks. So there's a significant amount of people on there when something like that happens.
Speaking of port jobs and things, you and I saw a couple or saw a video that the port put out this.
Yeah, and they're doing a series of videos, which we didn't even know they were doing. Right? What does it say? Episode 4 of Working for the Port of Baltimore. Ever wonder what it takes to get hundreds of or thousands of cars from the Port of Baltimore showroom ready? Take you behind the scenes with Amports at Dundalk Marine Terminal to one of our auto processing companies. So if you go to the Port of Baltimore YouTube page, it's on there if you want to check it out.
Yeah, so that's really neat. I'm glad that they're kind of showcasing what some of the major jobs or major positions are, so that people have some idea. If you drive past any of those terminals, you're going to look and see a whole bunch of cars parked out there, and you're like, okay, so what do they just float off of the ship and just kind of? No, there's people who are all involved in each one of those processes. So you have longshoremen who drive the vehicles off,
right,
and park them. You have other longshoremen who operate as auto processors, and they go in and they make the the customization.
Right. I never knew that. I never
Yeah.
knew that there were people, I don't know, putting on different radios or putting different seats or different wheels, or I really can't speak intelligently about it, but they do a lot of stuff at the port before they even get to the dealer. I had no idea. I always thought cars come the way they come, they're equipped the way they're equipped. You want car X with options Y and Z, well, you got to wait till it comes in. I didn't know that they could, hey, Joey, call Fred and get me one of those YZ option things and give it to me next week. I never knew that.
So any of the customization actually takes place at the port. And so if you want your fancy trim or rubber mats or fancy sound system, more than likely that's not being installed at the assembly line. It's being done right here at the terminal. And in some cases, some of those longshoremen have ASC certifications to do some minor body and maintenance work to it if needed coming off of the ship. So it was really. You should take, if you're interested in what those some of those jobs are, start watching that segment. It's called Working for the Port of Baltimore.
All right. What do we have on upcoming events?
You have an event coming up next week, June the 30th.
Yes.
Is the Woodwind Sailings on History Mondays with Mike Singer, the guest speaker. So if you want a nice evening out, hopefully maybe the temperature won't be so hot
right
next week. And if you want to listen and about Port of Baltimore history and answer some questions about today's shipping, maybe you want to take a look at that. Go over to Woodwind Sailing's website. I'll put the link on the page here. If you want a chance to go and sit with Mike on Monday night's cruise, go take a look at that.
Yeah, it's in Annapolis, right by the hotel. The times change occasionally. So be sure to. So I think it's you go under daily cruises. You go to Woodwind website. I think it's daily cruises or sunset cruises. Either one will get you there. And the tickets only go on sale a week beforehand. So the tickets should be on sale now. And you can buy your tickets, and it's a nice sunset sail on a 70-foot sailboat. Even when it's sold out, it's not like it's crazy crowded and you can't move around. And so we'll talk about like beginnings of shipping in the bay, and then hopefully there'll be some ships when we get out there. And it's always some interesting conversations. Folks like to learn about shipping, and if you're not a person who gets out on a sailboat for a sunset cruise out of Annapolis, it's really nice. So
Yeah,
check it out.
Absolutely. There's a couple other things that are coming up in the distant future. Trade Point Atlantic has got their fall open house dates. The John W. Brown has some dates for their ghost ships. Some of their outings. By the time that this episode comes out, the Maryland Fleet Week will have made their announcement about Sail 250, which is the big celebration coming up in 2026.
So I think, and they purposely picked tomorrow, right, as their official kickoff, because it's the same date that's going to start it a year from now. So that's kind of cool.
Okay. So we'll have some more information on that in the next episode.
Yeah.
All right. In the Port of Baltimore history segment,
all right,
for this episode, there's two things that are going on here. The first one has to do around Dundalk Terminal. Do you know what this is? Don't you? This is Dundalk Marine Terminal. Now wait a second. Why is there a plane there? And there's no cranes and no container.
Right.
So this is actually Harbor Field.
And
this is an airport that was erected in what is now Dundalk Marine Terminal.
Wasn't
it
like
opened as Harbor Field in 1929.
Oh, I had 39 in my head. Okay.
Yeah.
Close.
1929 accommodated seaplanes, commercial flights, and military operations.
And
but in 1958, the Maryland Port Authority purchased the property and then converted it into a marine terminal. And then all of the air transactions, all the air activity associated with Harbor Field here was moved to Martin State Airport.
Oh.
And so
I was assuming some of it went to Friendship when that opened.
Yeah, I think maybe a little bit did, but it was primarily a Martin State Airport operation. But this is in commemoration of BWI Airport's 75th anniversary this week. So this is all in conjunction. This helped the Harbor Field operations helped set up what we now know as Martin State Airport and BWI Thurgood Marshall Airport. This building that you see here is still in existence on the Dundalk Terminal, and they still use that.
Really?
Portion of that hangar as
no way
as operations out there. So you can see it out there on the back side of the property.
Okay.
The other history nugget, on June 22nd, 1980, there was a gentleman by the name of Paul Hall that passed away. So Paul Hall, you may know Paul here locally with some of the school operations out on the Eastern Shore. His official post in the Union was as a patrolman in the Port of Baltimore in 1944. And he rapidly moved up to become a port agent in New York, and then director of organizing the SIU. That's the Seafarers International Union for the Atlantic and Gulf District. And in 1947, he became the chief executive officer of the union. at the age of 32, and he held
Wow.
that post until his death, his death a month before his death. So he also led the Seafarers International Union on the general strike in 1947, where the seafarers won unprecedented gains in wages and conditions.
Mm-hmm.
So he also started the Paul Hall School out on the Eastern Shore. So his death was June 22nd, 1980. And so that was also around this time frame. So those are the two history nuggets for this week.
Gotcha. Thank you. Anything else?
I think that's about it for today.
Okay.
That's about all I got.
Okay. So as we talk about, as we go to close the podcast here, suggestions, Rotten Tomatoes, whatever you got, Mike at BaltimoreShipwatchers.com. So we all started out as a Facebook group with but now we have like 16,000 members. We also have a website full of information, links to the camera, the podcast, some swag for sale, clothing, glassware, hats, that kind of stuff. There's ship schedules on there, port maps, a lot of different information. We're also on Twix. Shout out Amy Lawrence, Insta, Reddit, Threads. We're all over the place on social media.
If you want to listen to the audio version of this, we're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
When we do this countdown, we were able to do it last episode because we were both in the same
right
room, the same mic.
Where you guys like sitting like this, like 90 degrees apart.
Yeah, it was kind of like that. So we were like, oh, no, we can count this thing down and get it right this time.
Mm-hmm. You and I, 30 miles apart, no hope.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you get what you get.
Forget it. Forget it.
It is what it is.
It's not happening.
Let's try this. 3,
right.
2, 1.
Happy ship watching. All right, I jumped the gun, but it probably sound good when you get through. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Have a great week.